Bonjour, Josiane Duvier, coordonnatrice Santé, Sécurité et Formation pour Siemens Canada Limited.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having us. Welcome. Let me start by introducing my team. So I have Melanie, John, and myself, Claudia. We call ourselves Fifth Gear Consulting. Essentially, you've approached us with a certain concern with regards to your staffing efforts and whether or not they are misdirected right now. And you asked us, can you do better and can you do more? To that, of course, we answer yes, and we're going to offer you our recommendations. So let's have a look at your current situation. So where is EMCO right now? You have had strong growth over the years through acquisitions. You're doing very well financially, and the company is very much sound. However, you're struggling with regards to recruitment and retention. Where you want to be is you want to be recognized as this employer of choice, and you want to be attracting top candidates. How are you going to do this? It's by redirecting your staffing efforts through an improved HR strategy that we're going to offer you. So there are 3 challenges that are impeding right now on you successfully having this sustainable HR strategy. So the first one is difficulty in attracting ideal candidates. The second one is a low retention rate, so keeping the key players within your company. And the third one is a lack of intergenerational synergy, all 3 of which I'll go further into depth in just a moment. But first, I'd like to reiterate our mandate, so making sure that we develop this strategy that will be sustainable. So by sustainable, what we mean is you can reuse it in the long term, and that'll gain momentum over time. So let's look back to that first challenge. Difficulty in attracting ideal candidates. So there are a few elements. First of all is the sources. Most of your candidates right now, these young university graduates, you're picking them from employment websites that they go to. That could be definitely broadened. The second one is your presence. So what kind of exposure do you have with these university graduates, and how do they perceive EMCO as a hiring company? The third one is communication. So EMCO has a lot of benefits, has really strong values, and it's all about communicating these to the potential candidates, and also making sure that they understand what are the demands of the job and what kind of a company they're going to enter into. And then lastly is the appeal. We want EMCO to be recognized as that employer of choice, and for candidates to be excited to go and work for EMCO. So it's not only essential to attract a large pool of candidates, not only quantity but also quality. So now with the second challenge, a low retention rate. Why is this a challenge for you? Essentially, there's a huge investment being done on the part of EMCO to attract and mold these employees towards these great managers. So $200,000 over a long period of time, which is 3 to 5 years. But not only that, your own human capital, the mentors, the managers that are involved with these employees, they've invested their own time into developing them. So no one wants a low retention rate. So essentially, you need to make sure that the reasons to stay are very well communicated in order to retain them. Now our last challenge, lack of intergenerational synergy. Why does this happen? Basically, the profile of your recruits is you target these young university graduates, but people who stay within the company, of course, they have more maturity within the environment, and it creates this kind of gap as well as a clash, because there's a difference with regards to their needs, but also a difference with regards to how they communicate with each other as well as how they interact. So it's important that there are measures in place to make sure that you have this harmonious environment where everyone is working together. So now I'm going to give you a quick summary. So we had 3 main challenges: attracting candidates, retaining them, and the synergy within the company. All of this will be solved with sustainable staffing efforts to have that long-term success. I now pass on the floor to my colleague, John.
Thank you very much, Claudia. So for our recommendations, we came up with a trick that's very simple, very easy for you guys to remember. This trick, an acronym, EMCO, your company. You guys have the tools, the resources to succeed and to come up with great initiatives. And for our recommendations, we came up with 4 main themes for our recommendations. E, for empowering your employees. M, for more exposure to gain more applicants. C, the career development within the company. And lastly, organizational strength synergy. So let's go into more depth on our recommendation. First off, the communication plan. It's really important to reduce the intergenerational gap within your company. It's really important to have a clear reporting structure within EMCO, and by having and developing a communication plan, you're going to have a more cohesive team within the company, within each profit centers. Our second recommendation is to come up with a development plan within your company. It's really important to retain these key employees that you've been investing so much, not just resources, but time of your employers. So really important to retain them and offer these opportunities of investment, not just within your profit centers, but maybe beyond the head offices at EMCO. By developing this career development program, you're going to have higher retention rates within the company, and also motivating these employees to stay within EMCO. Our third recommendation is coming up with a referral program. Employees that have this, that are sunk into your values, the EMCO values, they'll be more likely to recommend employees that are similar to themselves. So you're going to be able to recruit people that are more of a high quality, and by having that, EMCO's future is within the employees' hands. Our fourth recommendation is to have a co-op program and more university collaboration. Right now, like my colleague mentioned, Claudia, there is limited ways of recruiting these candidates, and university students are your main targets. So by partnering up with universities and really getting involved with the students and their student life, you're going to have direct contact with EMCO's target candidates. Our fifth recommendation is community involvement. We know that sustainability, the environment is something that's very true and dear to the company. Enforcing the community involvement will reinforce your presence within the community, and also reiterate that your sustainable approach is really important for EMCO. By strengthening your community involvement, you're strengthening the commitment that you have for the environment. And lastly, our last recommendation is the enriched training within phase 1. Now, employees are exposed to hazardous materials, and there may be dangers within the plants. It's really important to offer this training right at the get-go, right at phase 1, and make sure that they're exposed to what is ahead of them. It's really important that they're aware of these health and safety issues, and by having this enriched training within phase 1, you're going to have future managers that are oriented in health and safety. So for our implementation in the short term, from 0 to 3 months, we're going to be redesigning the communication plan and communicating this to everyone within the company, and reevaluating our appraisal system. And secondly, we're going to conduct exit interviews. There is a high attrition rate. We want to understand why are people leaving, and it's by conducting these exit interviews that we'll understand why. In the medium term, in between 3 to 6 months, we'll develop the referral programs, enrich the mentorship programs, implement the co-op program, and also get involved with universities, strengthen the community involvement, create career development programs, and the health and safety training integration within phase 1. In the long term, from 6 months and forward, we'll collect feedback and adjust accordingly to what the employees have been telling you. So to develop this implementation more in detail, I'll let the floor to Melanie.
Thank you, John. So as we can see in the short term, we do have quite a bit of work to do. Firstly, we need to redesign the communication program. So what's been happening is that you have this intergenerational differences between your older workforce and your younger workforce, and they have different ways of communicating between each other as well as with management. So you need to understand all of the different employees' preferred methods of communicating, but you also need to make sure that everyone can communicate with each other. So by instating an open door policy and clearly communicating to employees who and how they need to communicate for any information, you've given them a clear plan and a clear way of moving forward. With an open door policy, your upper management and your employees can then communicate freely through whichever method of choice they choose, whether it be through writing, through email, or any kinds of other technologies which they may prefer. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be establishing the who and how of employee communication, which is setting the tone for the rest of our recommendations. Next, we want to redesign the performance appraisal. Going in the theme of the intergenerational gap, there have been some problems with collaboration, and there's a definite gap that has been mentioned by EMCO. So by emphasizing the necessity of collaboration in the performance appraisals, you're making an employee's performance contingent on their collaboration with their partners. So by managers in HR adding this collaboration component to the performance appraisal, you're tying their bonuses, their year-end performance, to their direct ability to essentially communicate with everyone in the organization. So by making it an integral part of the organization, you're strengthening their desire to actually collaborate with everyone else. And in the short term, we're also going to be conducting exit interviews. You have a high attrition rate, and you're losing up to $200,000 that you've invested in these employees. If you don't understand why they're leaving, that money is just down the drain, and you're going to lose that money in the long run again if you don't pinpoint exactly why the employees are leaving. So by discovering the reasons for this employee attrition, you'll be able to hopefully solve this problem. So who's going to be doing this? We have a third party administrating anonymous surveys and conducting these exit interviews so that they're not tainted by management. Next, in the medium term, we want to create a referral program. You want people that are of the same culture as you already have at EMCO, and you want people that are as devoted and as dedicated to your sustainable approach. So by having a referral program, say of $500 or $700 for an employee, you'll be experiencing extreme cost savings in the long run by having similar candidates attracted to your company. So by creating this referral program, employees and managers will do this together. You'll be offering a monetary incentive for candidate referral. Next, we want to enrich the mentorship program. So we want to bridge that intergenerational gap once again. And we know this is going to take a little bit longer to do, so this is why we put it in the medium term. We want the senior and junior managements to be matched together based on compatibility as much as possible, where we see a fit, or where management sees a fit, and essentially assign a new junior hire to a manager to bridge that gap to make sure there is a connection and to increase the collaboration in the firm. Next, we want to design a co-op program. A huge part of attracting new graduates is getting into the university as soon as possible. So not right when they graduate, because students are thinking about their future jobs way before they graduate. So establishing that process, that presence early on through co-op programs, involving themselves in university case competitions, even by sponsoring a university, can be a very small investment that will pay off in the long term. So you're going to be appealing to new candidates and gaining legitimacy, because these institutions see you as a driving force for their success, and they'll understand that they have success working at EMCO later on. So by financially supporting student associations and offering internships, whether paid or not, you're essentially making sure that these candidates are going to remember your name, are going to remember EMCO when they graduate. Next, in the medium term, we want to strengthen that community involvement. You're extremely devoted to your sustainable approach. You offer an array of products that are sustainable for the future. You have your waterless urinals and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that not only are you sustainable in your products, but that you're changing that, you're communicating that sustainability in the environment and in the communities. You make it a big deal to keep your profit centers operating under their own name in the community, to make sure that people in the community are still going to their local stores, still supporting the locals. So by doing that and involving each profit center in a separate sustainable organization in their own community, you'll be able to enrich that involvement in sustainable initiatives. Next, you want to create a career development program. This is extremely important to attack that low retention rate that we have. Offering attainable and enticing career opportunities to new hires once they come in, giving them a clear, personalized path. So how they can move through their company and see themselves in EMCO for the future is going to be absolutely essential for your success. So by conducting quarterly reviews, establishing exactly what the employee wants to do with their life, where they see themselves at EMCO, and establish a clear path of how to get there, be it through training, experience, cross-functional teams. Establish a clear path and review it quarterly to make sure that these goals are attained. Employees will see a strong, sustainable future for themselves in the company. And lastly, in the medium term, health and safety training. We know that it's a really big priority for EMCO to have high safety standards, and we want employees to adhere to them. We want to make sure that it's emphasized in phase one, that employees know what their rights are, what the health and safety measures are, how to report it, who to report it to. These are all extremely important things, and we want to emphasize this once again in phase one of the junior manager training. Finally, in the long term, we want to collect feedback. We want to make sure that the employees at EMCO right now are not suffering and are not finding this change to be disruptive. And if so, how can we change our approach? So by collecting important information regarding this new contact, managers and employees together can do this through surveys, interviews, questionnaires, as well as this open door policy. We'll be able to then, in the long term, adjust the training program and the content to reflect what employees are most concerned about. We want to keep that employee morale high. We don't want our current employees, our current culture to suffer. So by reviewing the recruitment and retention strategies will allow you to make those necessary changes. So then we have our measures of success. How are we going to evaluate the success of the recommendations that we have put forth for you today? We want to see an increase in the number of applicants. Obviously, this has not been a problem for you in the past as you've been receiving a numerous amount of applicants. But you basically want to have a number of successful new hires, a lower retention rate, and a number of employees that are fast-tracked throughout the organization, as well as good feedback collected.
So we're just going to first wrap up with regards to the 3 challenges and how they're being solved by our 4 recommendations. So just to remind you, MCO. So with empower employees, more exposure, career development, as well as organizational synergy. So the first one was difficulty in attracting ideal candidates. So let me remind you, this had to do with making sure that you have a large pool to choose from, but also high quality. One of the statistics that were given to us was that only 1 of 200 resumes collected actually went through the entire hiring process and were hired. So that indicates that you are getting a high quantity, but the quality might not be so much there. So by having that high university involvement, higher exposure, being renowned as this employer of choice, it should improve the quantity, and hopefully you can get that up from that 1 on 200 with regards to your measures of success to a much higher number. So that was solved basically by empowering employees. So really key to the referral program, because now they're owning the fact that they're attracting these candidates that they will in the future work with. Secondly, more exposure, so the university, the community, the reputation of MCO as this employer of choice. And third, career development. So whoever's going to be hired, they have the sentiment that they have a future with MCO, and though it may take 3 to 5 years, there's now this fast-track program. So if they show exceptional qualities, they have the potential to essentially go faster through that 3 to 5 year period and have a great future. So that was the first one. Secondly, the low retention rate. So this issue had to do with this huge challenge with regards to keeping these employees. You invest so much time, so much money, so much effort in molding these young university graduates into top managers. This was solved with empowering employees, so having them own their development. So there is a career development program. They have a communication plan. They know who to report to, who is supporting them. Secondly, that ties in with career development, so that whole career path. And organizational synergy is a big one. Let's say a young university graduate who has all the potential to succeed within the company comes in and there's a huge conflict with regards to his senior manager. By improving organizational synergy, by having a strong communication plan, you ensure that these conflicts that could have been avoided are, and that it's more of a pleasant environment in which the employee can work in. And now the last challenge. Again, tied in all together, lack of intergenerational synergy. So having this sentiment that there's a division. So there's these more past, or people who have been with the company longer, more experience, and these young ones. And this has to do with the challenge of you're attracting these young candidates. In the future, you could also target potentially older candidates or people with more experience, because now they have the opportunity to go through a fast-track program and potentially fly through the process a bit faster. So you're not only limiting your resource pool to these young candidates, but also to an older generation or a more experienced generation. So this was solved with E, C, and O, so empower employees, career development, and of course organizational synergy, all tied into communication. Lastly, so what we want to conclude is, if we were to point one strategy on which to put most of your focus on right now, is empowering employees, because I've shown how it's tied into all 3 challenges, and as a first initiative, it is sure to ensure that sustainable HR practice and solve your staffing problems. So with that, we thank you and we open the floor to questions.
So early in your presentation, you identified 2 key issues that we had. One is how better express the benefits and opportunities of working with MCO, and also the issue that it's not that exciting. Do you have any specific recommendations around those 2 areas in terms of how to make it look more exciting, and also to communicate more effectively in venues like this? What are the benefits of our program?
Right, so this is going to be covered in not only the university collaboration, but by offering a co-op internship. When you give early on sponsorship and support to university students early on in their career, you give them a chance to see what it's like to work at MCO. You can do something like offering a video, a day in the life, something fun like that the younger workforce might be into, the social media buzz. But offering them an internship and an actual chance to be able to work for the company and see firsthand what it's like, come back to school and tell their friends how actually cool it is, you get a better chance of gaining legitimacy with this group.
And you talked about the intergenerational differences. I was wondering if you had, and there were some general recommendations about communication plans and so on, but how would you see more specific things you could do to, for people like Jean Bernard and myself, to young people like yourself, to have a better communication once you're at the workforce, relations?
Well, one of the key parts was not maintaining that gap. So part of the intergenerational conflict is the fact that it is allowed for there to be a gap. Like the young people can stay together, the people with more experience can stay together. So by having you work together, communicate together, that'll ensure that there's a certain bond and no longer this sentiment that you cannot work together. It's one team, essentially.
Would you have one example how to better empower the new employee that actually comes on board?
Well, by creating these career development programs, you're putting them directly in charge of their future. So you're giving them the tools and the necessary methods that they need to succeed, and you're leaving it in their hands. So it's up to them whether or not they want to actually go through with it and continue working successfully. But all this is at their fingertips, and they're in control of their future.
I would like to have your quick input concerning the actual hiring process, interview process, and testing.
Currently, it is quite extensive. There is like a lot of personality exams and whatnot. It is extensive, but it is essential for MCO to go through this extensive recruitment and process, because you do want to choose the top candidates. And it's by extending that pool of candidates, by extending the exposure, that you'll be able to attract more qualified employees, and through the referral programs as well. And they'll be able to successfully go through all those tests.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Claudia?